If you've been through a breakup with an avoidant and you wished so deeply that they would step up and fight for you, but they didn't, this video is for you. Maybe you walked away or maybe they did. Either way, the silence can be absolutely soul-destroying, so painful. And if you're feeling this right now, I'm sending so much strength your way. I've been there myself and I really do feel your pain. And I'll share more about my experience at the end so you can see how this plays out in real life. Hi, I'm Jess. I've helped over 5,000 people find love, and I run a one-to-one coaching program that takes you from anxious to secure so you can trust your instincts and build the relationship you've always wanted. If you're ready for that transformation, sign up via the link in the description box. So an avoidant can love you deeply, but when it comes down to it, they will almost never fight for you. The word fighting is an interesting one, and for someone who is secure, that generally means showing up, having hard conversations, and working through difficult times. And I want to add here, you don't want to fight for a relationship at all costs. It's absolutely okay for a relationship to end. Sometimes two people do grow apart, sometimes the dynamics are just not healthy, and that's okay if it ends. I think stigma around breakups and divorce really isn't helpful. Relationships ending doesn't mean failure. Sometimes it's the best path for both people. But yes, for an avoidant, fighting for a relationship feels completely different. It feels terrifying. So even if they care really deeply, it's unlikely that they'll fight for you. And today I'll be talking about both dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance. And if there are differences, I'll highlight them. So let's dive in and look at the reasons why avoidants almost never fight for you, even if they love you. Reason one, it feels too vulnerable. Avoidants have learned to equate vulnerability with danger. Maybe when they opened up in the past, it wasn't received well, or it was maybe even used against them. So they have negative associations with opening up. And as a result, they build protective patterns. Things like not showing too much of themselves, not relying on anyone too much, not letting anyone see how deeply they care. And fighting for you would mean admitting how much you mean to them. And that feels like putting themselves at risk of rejection or abandonment. Fighting for someone means showing your emotions. And for them, it's easier to act like they don't care than to risk exposing their real feelings. And a quick heads up, if you're anxiously attached, this next part is for you. If you constantly overthink, spiral, and second guess yourself, I've got something that can help. It's called the Self-Trust Blueprint. It's my 3-step framework to go from anxious to secure in life and love without years of therapy or guesswork. And I'm giving it away for free for a limited time. And honestly, I'm super passionate about it because I've seen it change so many lives. It's the exact framework I used myself to become securely attached, and my life is so much better for it. I've helped over 5,000 people find love. My work has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, the New York Times, Men's Health, and many more. And I've spent years refining the exact tools you'll find inside this blueprint. If you're ready to go from spiraling to secure, sign up via the link in the description box to get it while it's still available. Reason two, it feels like a loss of control. For avoidants, independence isn't just something they like. It's a learned survival strategy. From a young age, most of the time, they learn to rely on themselves because depending on others felt risky or disappointing. So that self-reliance became their way of staying safe. Fighting for a relationship does signal a level of dependence, and some level of dependence is absolutely healthy in a relationship, just to be clear. But for avoidants, that thought that their well-being might rely on someone else can feel unbearable to them. In their mind, if you fight for someone, you're risking being pulled into their emotional world where the avoidant feels trapped and powerless. So fighting for someone can feel like surrendering control. And that is very uncomfortable for avoidants. And for fearful avoidants in particular, it's also about power dynamics. Fighting for someone would feel like handing over the power, and that would likely make them feel unsafe. Reason 3, it feels like they'll lock themselves in. Avoidants often manage expectations very carefully. At the very least, they're highly aware of expectations, particularly in romantic relationships. Avoidants, most of the time, are in some ways doing the opposite of fighting for a relationship, in the sense that they're managing expectations to keep distance, not opening themselves up to those expectations or even inviting them in. So it's completely counterintuitive to them. And when it comes to fighting for someone, they don't just see it as trying to maintain what might be a special connection. They see it as a big signal of commitment. And ultimately, in some ways it is. It's not great to fight to keep someone and then suddenly drop off, and they know that. Fighting for someone creates a kind of implicit contract of commitment. And to an avoidant, that feels like locking themselves into a role they might not be ready for or be able to live up to. And because they fear disappointing people or being trapped by expectations, their instinct is to back away. So yes, for most avoidants, if they're in a position where they feel like they have to fight for you, it will feel unsafe and overwhelming. And ultimately, from their perspective, it's less painful to just let the relationship crumble or end rather than to risk openly fighting for it, which feels so vulnerable when you're wired to equate expressing emotions with danger. And while avoidants might suppress their feelings for a while, it still isn't easy for them in the long run. In some ways, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because fighting for you would mean facing their biggest fears. And not fighting for you means potentially losing someone that they might deeply love, depending on the situation, of course. The safer choice for them is to not fight at all. And I was in a relationship with the dismissive avoidant myself, and when it ended, I wanted so much for him to fight for me, but he didn't. And I found out a year later, he was still really sad about the breakup. And it was before I properly knew about attachment styles, and I was thinking, but why didn't he say anything or do anything? But as you can see, there are many reasons why. So yes, it wasn't that he didn't care, it's that avoidants often can't fight for us in the way we want them to, even when they love someone. And you can rewire your attachment style. That's exactly what I guide people through in my one-to-one coaching program. If you're ready to stop second-guessing yourself and trust your instincts, sign up via the link in the description box. Thanks for watching.